Hello, my dear learners of class 12. How are you all? Yes, I pray for the safety of all of you. So stay safe and stay happy. Yes, as I promised to you earlier that I will be discussing question answers of each and every lesson with you all in the second round. So now I am here with you all, and today I'm taking lesson 1 of your textbook Flamingo, and that is the last lesson. And today we'll talk about the examination style questions which have been asked in the past few years, and those questions we'll be discussing. MCQs we have done earlier in part 1 of this lesson. So today we'll take short questions and long questions. But before I start, let us just recap the lesson. So the name of the lesson is the last lesson. And it seems very confusing. The first lesson of your syllabus is titled the last lesson. So one thinks, what is the reason behind it? But when you read the lesson, you feel that this lesson is uh, it's a small lesson with a big message. Okay, and the author is Alphonse Daudet, and this lesson has been narrated by a small boy named Franz, and it talks about Franco-Prussian War, where French were defeated and the districts of Alsace and Lorraine were also under the Germans. So now आप सोच सकते हैं कि अगर दो कंट्रीज के बीच में वॉर होता है और एक कंट्री विन कर जाती है तो दूसरे कंट्री के साथ क्या होता है. जो विनिंग कंट्री होता है वो हारे हुए कंट्री के साथ अपनी कंडीशंस लगाता है. तो ऐसे ही these Germans, what do they do? These Prussians, now known as German, what do they do? वो एक रूल निकालते हैं कि अब से फ्रेंच जो है फ्रांस में नहीं पढ़ाई जाएगी. आप इमेजिन करके देखिए कि आपसे आपकी मदर टंग छीनी जा रही है. तो आपको कैसे लगता है कि जैसे आपके आपके पास एक लॉक है और उसकी की किसी और के पास है, isn't it? आपसे आपकी आइडेंटिटी छीनी जा रही है. तो हाउ विल यू सर्वाइव विदाउट योर मदर टंग? सो ये उस लास्ट डे की स्टोरी है जब रूल आया कि tomorrow is the last day and from day after tomorrow French will not be taught. So today is the last lesson. Now what happens? Franz, who's a small boy, that day he's not interested in going to school. It was because he had not done his homework. So he thought teacher will scold me, डांट पड़ेगी सर से, तो नहीं जाता. But he starts. So he's late, he moves late from his home, and on the way also he gets attracted to so many things and reaches late. But when he's out of his classroom, he's just to enter his classroom, he feels that there is something very unusual today. No noise, no repetition of words, which you, every day the students, small students, repeated after the teacher. That was not there. So he enters the class, and there he finds that his sir, M. Hamel, name of the teacher is M. Hamel. He is in a party dress which he used to wear on certain occasions. But today he was in party dress. Then he noticed that there were some elders sitting on the back benches of the class. So these things were very unusual, which did not happen every day. So when he went inside the classroom, M. Hamel told him to sit down. He did not scold him. That was also unusual. And when he sat there, then he came to know, M. Hamel taught them that today is the last lesson and from tomorrow you will be taught German. And that was a thunder clap. आप सोचिए कि ऐसा नहीं लगेगा जैसे बिजली गिरा दी हो किसी ने आपके ऊपर, है ना, कि आप कल से अपनी हिंदी भाषा ना बोलेंगे और ना पढ़ेंगे. So what will happen? You'll feel as if your identity has been taken away from you. आपकी mother tongue, how important is your mother tongue? Then you recognize. So the studies, the language which friends considered to be as a burden, जो उसको बोझ नजर आती थी, आज वो इतना इंटरेस्टिंग वे में सब कुछ उसको समझ आ रहा है. And suddenly M. Hamel asks him to uh, tell him certain participles and he messes up. So he gets very nervous and sits down. Then he tells, M. Hamel tells, see, this is the way you all waste time. Sometimes teacher is not serious, sometimes students are not serious, sometimes parents send them elsewhere. And then he starts teaching them each and every concept. He does not waste a single moment that day. Though it was a last lesson, still he kept on teaching them, kept on giving them as much as he could. And he tells that if you want to be a winner, don't leave your mother tongue. It's like a key to a prison, your mother tongue. And then when the church bell strikes 12 and then he stands up and writes on the blackboard, Vive la France. That means long live France. And he gives them a gesture that you all can go. So this is a brief summary of this lesson. Now let's start with the questions which I feel are very important and have been asked in the past few years. So all set, let me share screen with you. Okay, be ready. So MCQs, as I told you, we have discussed earlier in the part 1. So today I am taking straight away the short questions which you are supposed to write in 20 to 30 words. So, what did Franz not, why did Franz not want to go to school that day? क्यों नहीं जाना चाह रहा था वो उस दिन स्कूल? Let's see why. Franz was tempted to run away and spend the day outside instead of attending school as it was a warm and bright day and he wanted to watch the Prussian soldiers drill. See, छोटे बच्चे हैं ना, किसी भी छोटी छोटी चीजों की तरफ आकर्षित हो जाते हैं. तो फ्रांस उस दिन स्कूल के बाहर अपना दिन बिताना चाहता था क्योंकि वो एक वार्म डे था, सनी डे था और वो प्रशियन सोल्जर्स को ड्रिल करते हुए देखना चाहता था. Moreover, he had not done his lesson on participles from which his teacher M. Hamel was going to question and feared a scolding from his teacher. See, there were two reasons. One was that he wanted to stay out because it was a warm day and wanted to watch the Prussian soldiers. They were exercising. And the second reason was that the previous day he was given some home assignment. that he had to prepare a lesson on participles, which he had not done. Now he was afraid that if he goes to school and the teacher asks him, he'll get a scolding, डांट पड़ेगी क्योंकि आपको जो लेसन दिया गया आपने वो नहीं किया. तो ये टू रीजंस की वजह से वो स्कूल नहीं जाना चाहता था. क्लियर? Let's see the next question. What did Franz wonder about when he entered the class that day? क्या उसको लग रहा था जब वो क्लास में एंटर किया कि why everything is so different? Franz wondered about a number of things when he entered the class that day. बहुत सारी चीजें थी. There was not one reason. There were many reasons. He wondered as to why he was not given a scolding by his teacher. लेट आने पर डांट पड़ती थी. उस दिन कोई डांट नहीं पड़ी. M. Hamel for being late. Why his teacher was wearing his formal clothes, which he wore only on inspections and prize days. और उस दिन वो फॉर्मल क्लोथ्स पहने हुए थे जो कि वो खास खास दिन पर पहनते थे. कोई एग्जीबिशन होती थी, कोई फंक्शन होता था. And why the village elders were sitting on the back benches in the classroom. Three reasons. He was late, he entered late in the classroom, but he was not scolded by his teacher. है ना? लेट क्लास में एंटर किया, टीचर से डांट नहीं पड़ी लेट आने पर. ये फर्स्ट रीजन. सेकंड रीजन, टीचर फॉर्मल ड्रेस में है जो कि वो खास खास ओकेजन्स पर पहनता था. थर्ड रीजन, क्लासरूम के अंदर कुछ विलेज के एल्डर्स लास्ट बेंचेस पर बैठे हुए थे. तो ये तीन रीजंस थे जिसकी वजह से उस फ्रेंड्स को लगता था कि आज कुछ डिफरेंट है. ओके, नाउ लेट्स मूव ऑन टू द नेक्स्ट वन. Why were some elderly persons occupy the back benches that day? क्यों आए हुए थे elders? Why were they there? The elders of the village were sitting in the classroom as a mark of respect which they wanted to show for their language and their country. Now they knew that they have their country has lost the war. They knew that the teacher who had been serving them for the last 40 years had to leave the place immediately. है ना? तो एकदम से उस एम हेमल को जाना था. 40 years से वो वहां पर पढ़ा रहे थे, but suddenly he was ordered to go away. So the elders of the village were sitting in the classroom as a mark of respect. उनको सम्मान देने के लिए अपनी लैंग्वेज और अपने कंट्री को वो सम्मान देना चाहते थे. They felt sorry for not having learned their language and wanted to thank M. Hamel for his 40 years of faithful service. They were sorry कि वो अपनी लैंग्वेज को ढंग से नहीं पढ़ सके, अपनी मदर टंग को ढंग से नहीं पढ़ सके. And they also wanted to thank M. Hamel for serving their country for 40 years, for teaching their kids for 40 years. Are you all understanding? Good. Let's see the next question. Question number 4. Yes. What a thunderclap these words were to me. Who says this? Friends. What were those words and what was their effect on France? कौन से वर्ड्स थे जो थंडर क्लैप बनकर उसके ऊपर गिरे, बिजली की तरह से फ्रांस के ऊपर गिरे? Let's see. When M. Hamel mounted on the chair and announced that he was there to teach his last French lesson that day, France was shocked and surprised. एम हेमल चेयर पर बैठे और उन्होंने ये अनाउंस किया कि भाई टुडे इज द लास्ट फ्रेंच लेसन एंड फ्रॉम टुमारो यू विल लर्न जर्मन. एंड दिस केम एज अ शॉक. Friends did not know anything till then, so he was so shocked कि what is he saying? Now, after knowing that, he felt very guilty for deliberately ignoring to learn his native language. Now he was very guilty. अपने ऊपर गुस्सा हो रहा था, क्यों मैं अपनी भाषा को मैंने ध्यान नहीं दिया, इग्नोर किया. And he suddenly developed a strange fascination for his language and his school. और अचानक से अपनी लैंग्वेज और अपने स्कूल के लिए बहुत सारा प्यार पैदा हो गया. So these were the words that from now onwards you will not learn French. That was a thunderclap, right? Now, next question is, how were the parents and M. Hamel responsible for the children's neglect of the French language? Now, he says that I am also responsible, your parents are also responsible. Because of our neglect, you have not been able to study your language properly. How? M. Hamel blamed everyone for putting off learning till the next time and thus losing out on the opportunity to learn their native language. उसने सबको दोषी ठहराया, अपने आप को भी रिस्पॉन्सिबल ठहराया कि हम लोग एक आम तौर पर ये कह देते हैं कि ओके विल डू इट टुमारो, ओके विल डू आफ्टर अ फ्यू डेज, बट समटाइम्स you do not have tomorrow, you do not get tomorrow, you do not get few days. So that nature was responsible. Basically everyone has that nature. The parents prefer to put their children to work on a farm or at the mills so that they could earn more money. Parents किस तरह से रिस्पॉन्सिबल थे, वो बच्चों को अपने फार्म्स पर भेज देते थे या मिल्स में काम करने भेज देते थे जिससे कुछ एक्स्ट्रा इनकम हो जाए. M. Hamel too sent them to water his flowers and gave them a holiday when he wanted to go for fishing. एम हेमल ने कहा मैं कैसे रिस्पॉन्सिबल हूँ, मैं भी आप लोगों को चलो आज फ्लावर्स को वाटर कर दे दो, चलो आज मुझे कहीं जाना है, मुझे आज फिशिंग के लिए जाना है तो आप सबकी छुट्टी. He says I am also responsible as well as your parents are also responsible that we did not give proper attention to our French language. Clear? Let's see the next question. Question number 6. How is the title The Last Lesson appropriate? आपको क्या लगता है इसका कोई और लेसन हो सकता था, सॉरी कोई और टाइटल हो सकता था इस लेसन का? मुझे तो बहुत ही जस्टिफाई, बिल्कुल करेक्ट टाइटल है, एप्रोप्रिएट है ना? The title The Last Lesson is appropriate because it was M. Hamel's last lesson and also the last French lesson in the school. लास्ट लेसन था ना एम हेमल का भी और फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज का भी, इसलिए जो ये टाइटल है द लास्ट लेसन बहुत ही सूट करता है, बहुत ही अप्रोप्रिएट है. During the last lesson, the teachers as well as all those who were attending it were feeling nostalgic and repentant. अब उस लास्ट लेसन में जितने भी लोग वहां पर बैठे हुए थे वो बहुत पश्चाताप कर रहे थे, बहुत उनको बुरा लग रहा था. Let's see the next question. How different did M. Hamel look that particular morning in the last lesson? कितने अलग लग रहे थे M. Hamel. M. Hamel is the teacher. In honor of his last French lesson in the school, M. Hamel had put on his fine Sunday clothes. उस अपने लास्ट फ्रेंच लेसन के सम्मान में वो बहुत अच्छे, जो कि वो आमतौर पर चर्च जाते हुए संडे को पहनते थे, वो कपड़े पहन कर आए हुए थे. He had on his green coat, his frilled shirt and the little black all embroidered silk cap that he never wore except on inspection and prize days. तो ये कपड़े वो पहन कर आए थे जो कि वो खास तौर पर कभी इंस्पेक्शन होती थी या कभी प्राइज डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन होता था तब पहनते थे. What was एम हेमल्स रिग्रेट ऑन द डे ऑफ द लास्ट लेसन, क्या पश्चाताप था उनको, है ना? M. Hamel's regret on the last day of the French lesson was that they all had put off learning their language till the next, and now most of them who claimed to be Frenchmen could neither speak nor write their language. ये बहुत बड़ा पश्चाताप था, बहुत दुख था उनको कि वो लोग, जो ये नेचर है ना कि हम हर काम को अगले दिन पर डालते हैं, नेक्स्ट डे पर डालते हैं, तो अब नेक्स्ट डे तो मिला ही नहीं। और अब जो जितने भी फ्रेंच मैन हैं, फ्रांस में रहने वाले लोग हैं जो कि बहुत क्लेम करते हैं कि हम फ्रेंच हैं और हम फ्रांस में रहने वाले हैं, उनमें से बहुत सारे लोग ना लिख सकते हैं ना पढ़ सकते हैं। For this they all, including M. Hamel himself, had a great deal to reproach themselves with. और इसके लिए उन सब को, एम हेमल को भी, वो अपने आप को भी इंक्लूड करते हैं कि हमें बहुत सारा इंट्रोस्पेक्शन इस मैटर पे करने की जरूरत है। क्वेश्चन नंबर 9 इज, व्हाट डिड एम हेमल आस्क फ्रेंड्स टू रिसाइट एंड हाउ डिड फ्रेंड्स फेयर इन इट? क्या कहा था उनसे, क्या पूछा था फ्रेंड्स से और कैसा बताया उसने? M. Hamel asked friends to recite the rules on participles. Participles, previous day participles का लेसन लर्न करने को दिया था, तो उन्होंने participles के रूल्स कहा फ्रेंड्स को बताने के लिए। He wanted to recite it without any mistakes, but he mixed up on the very first words and stood there holding on to his desk. वो सुनाना चाहता था लेकिन इतना नर्वस हो गया कि स्टार्टिंग के वर्ड्स में ही कंफ्यूज हो गया, मिक्स अप कर दिया और फिर नर्वसनेस में चुपचाप खड़ा रहा। His heart was beating and he didn't dare to look up. हार्ट बीट फास्ट हो गई और ऊपर देखने की हिम्मत ही नहीं हुई। What does M. Hamel say about the French language? M. Hamel क्या कहते हैं फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज के बारे में? M. Hamel says that French is the most beautiful language in the world, the clearest, the most logical. कहते हैं विश्व की सबसे सुंदर भाषा है फ्रेंच, और सबसे साफ है और सबसे तर्क संगत है, तर्क के साथ चलती। He asks his students to guard their language and never forget it. वो अपने स्टूडेंट से क्या कहते हैं? अपनी मदर टंग की रक्षा करो और कभी भूलना मत, अपनी मदर टंग को हमेशा जानना, मतलब टू स्पीक, टू राइट, टू रीड, ये सब आप अपनी मदर टंग आपको आनी चाहिए। According to him, when people are enslaved, they have the key to their prison as long as they hold fast to their language. उनका क्या कहना था? उनके विचार में कि जब भी हमारे ऊपर किसी दूसरी कंट्री का राज होता है, हम उनके स्लेव बन जाते हैं, तो जो हमारी मदर टंग है ना, वो ही एक तरह से की टू द प्रिजन होती है, जब तक हमारा अपनी मदर टंग पर होल्ड। क्लियर? फ्रांस was able to understand everything that day. Why? उस दिन फ्रांस को सब कुछ समझ आ रहा था। क्यों? उससे पहले तो उसको पढ़ाई बोझ लगती थी, पर उस दिन नहीं लग रही थी, उस दिन तो सब कुछ बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग लग रहा था। Why? On that day, Franz was able to understand quite well. All that M. Hamel said seemed to him so easy. Franz thought he had never listened so carefully, and also M. Hamel had never explained everything with so much patience. उस दिन he was able to understand everything. M. Hamel भी हर चीज को बहुत इजी, बहुत अच्छे से एक्सप्लेन कर रहे थे, और फ्रेंड्स को भी लग रहा था कि इतनी केयरफुली, इतनी अटेंटिवली तो मैंने कभी सुना ही नहीं एम हेमल को, और इतने पेशेंस से कभी उन्होंने समझाया भी नहीं। दोनों बातें थी और इसलिए उस दिन बहुत अच्छे से समझ आ रहा था। सो these are few important questions which I thought you all should know. And let's move on to the long questions now. What did the French teacher tell his students in his last French lesson? What impact did it have on them? Why? आखिरी दिन उन्होंने क्या कहा? फ्रेंच लेसन के बारे में क्या क्या बताया, फ्रेंच के बारे में जो उनका लास्ट डे था, उसका क्या प्रभाव उन स्टूडेंट्स पर हुआ और क्यों? एम हेमल told his students that a new order from Berlin has declared that all schools of Alsace and Lorraine would teach only German, so this was going to be their last French lesson. पहले तो ये बताया कि भाई वहां से ऑर्डर आया है कि जर्मन ही पढ़ाई जाएगी और आज आपका फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज का लास्ट लेसन. The new order aroused patriotic feelings in him, and he in turn wanted to arouse similar patriotism in his students and the village elders. अब इस ऑर्डर ने एक देशभक्ति की फीलिंग जागृत की और वही वो फीलिंग सारे स्टूडेंट्स और विलेज के जो एल्डर्स बैठे थे उनमें पैदा करना चाहिए. He made them conscious of the glory and value of the French language and told them to safeguard it amongst themselves and keep it alive at all costs as it was the key to their unity and liberation. उसने उनको कॉन्शियस किया कि फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज के गौरव को, उसकी वैल्यू को समझो और उसकी रक्षा करो, उसको सेफ गार्ड करो, क्योंकि आपकी यूनिटी और आपकी आज़ादी इस मदर टंग से ही आ सकती है, आपकी नेटिव लैंग्वेज से ही आप यूनाइट हो सकते हैं. Everyone listened to him sadly but with rapt attention and respect. सब कोई उसको उदासी से सुन रहे थे और पूरे ध्यान और सम्मान से सुन रहे थे. Even little friends listened to his teacher's words with a new-found interest. Friends भी बहुत ध्यान से सुन रहे हैं. He felt sorry that he had neglected learning French. उसको अब दुख हो रहा था कि मैंने क्यों फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज की तरफ ध्यान नहीं दिया. Everyone from the village assembled in the class to thank M. Hamel for his 40 years of faithful service to the community. और सब लोग इसलिए इकट्ठे हुए थे एम हेमल को थैंक करने के लिए कि उन्होंने 40 इयर्स तक उनके टाउन में फेथफुली सर्व किया. How different from usual was the atmosphere at school on the day of the last lesson? Why was the atmosphere so unusual? इतना असाधारण वातावरण क्यों था उस दिन? Acquiring power over the Alsatian made the Prussians so dominating that they even imposed their language on them. देखो जब कहीं पर हमारी पावर चलने लगती है ना तो हम उनसे उनकी आइडेंटिटी छीनने की कोशिश करते हैं. सो उन्होंने अपनी लैंग्वेज, उनकी मदर टंग भी छीन ली और अपनी लैंग्वेज उन पर फोर्स कर दी. दिस वे the Prussians intended to dominate the hearts and minds of the Alsatians and wanted them to even think in their language and thereby lose their complete identity. ऐसा वो क्यों कर रहे थे एल्सेक और लॉरेन के सिटीजन्स के लिए? ताकि वो उनकी ही भाषा में सोचें, उन्हीं की लैंग्वेज बोलें. इस तरह से वो अपनी पूरी आइडेंटिटी धीरे धीरे लूज कर जाए. An order had been received from Berlin that only German would be taught in schools of Alsace and Lorraine. So there was something unusual about the school on the last day of the French lesson. उस ऑर्डर के आने की वजह से पूरा माहौल अलग था. The usual hustle and bustle was missing. जो रोज शोर शराबा भाग दौड़ मची रहती थी वो नहीं थी. Everything was strange and solemn as on a Sunday morning. सब कुछ इतना अजीब सा और शांत लग रहा था जैसे कि संडे के दिन होता है जब कोई होता ही नहीं स्कूल में. The village elders were seated on the back desks. ये भी बहुत अनयूजुअल था. एल्डर्स तो कभी आते ही नहीं स्कूल में, है ना. M. Hamel, who had been teaching French at the school for the last 40 years, was wearing his formal suit in honor of the last French lesson. और वो फॉर्मल ड्रेस में आए हुए थे जो कि वो खास खास ओकेजन्स पर पहनते थे. While delivering the last lesson, he called upon his students and the village elders to guard the French language among themselves and never forget it, declaring French to be the most beautiful language in the world. और उन्होंने कहा कि अगर अपनी पहचान बनाकर रखनी है तो अपनी लैंग्वेज को कभी मत भूलना, और ये भी कहा कि फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज जो है वर्ल्ड की सबसे ब्यूटीफुल लैंग्वेज। फ्रेंच डेवलप्ड अ सडन फैसिनेशन फॉर स्कूल। अचानक से फ्रेंच को अपनी स्कूल और फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज से लगाव हो गया, और एम हेमल के लिए बहुत सी रिस्पेक्ट पैदा होगी। He wanted his teachers to stay and felt very guilty for having neglected his French lessons, as now he was being deprived of the opportunity of learning his language. अब उसको बहुत गिल्ट हो रहा था कि मैंने क्यों ध्यान नहीं दिया फ्रेंच लेसन्स पर, और अब तो मैं अपनी लैंग्वेज को सीख ही नहीं पाऊंगा। So let's move on to question number 3. Everybody during the last lesson is filled with regret. Comment. हर कोई को दुख है उस लास्ट लेसन में। तो the one common feeling that fills each and every person who is present in the last French lesson is an acute sense of regret, पछतावा। M. Hamel reproaches himself for putting off his students' learning till the next day and sending them to water his flowers instead of learning their lessons. He also gave his students a holiday when he wanted to go fishing. एम हेमल ने अपने आप को कसूरवार माना क्योंकि वो अपने स्टूडेंट्स को पढ़ाने की बजाय गार्डन में पानी देने के लिए फ्लावर्स को भेज देता था, या जिस दिन उसको फिशिंग पे जाना होता था तो वो बच्चों की छुट्टी कर देता था। फ्रेंड्स फेल्ट सॉरी फॉर नॉट लर्निंग हिज लेसन्स एंड एस्केपिंग स्कूल। फ्रेंड्स को अपने ऊपर गुस्सा आ रहा था कि वो अपने लेसन्स ढंग से नहीं करता था, स्कूल से एस्केप करता था। He wished he had attended his classes more often, and even the thought of losing his teacher saddened him. अब सोच रहा था कि काश मैंने अपनी क्लासेस ध्यान से अटेंड की होती। अब उसको एम हेमिल भी बहुत अच्छे लगने लगे थे और वो उनको लूज नहीं करना चाहता था। The village elders occupied the backbenches of the class to atone for their guilt and express their regret for not having attended school regularly. और जो बड़े लोग थे उनको ये गिल्ट था कि उन्होंने जब पढ़ने का टाइम था तब उन्होंने स्कूल ढंग से अटेंड नहीं किया। दे वर नाउ शोइंग द रिस्पेक्ट फॉर द कंट्री दैट वाज देयर्स नो मोर। अब उनकी अपने कंट्री को रिस्पेक्ट दे रहे थे जो कि दूसरे के कंट्रोल में आ गई थी। रशियंस ने उसको जीत लिया था, है ना। Let's see the next question. Our language is part of our culture and we are proud of it. Describe how regretful M. Hamel and the village elders are for having neglected their native language. French. Now, इसमें काफी कुछ लास्ट वाले आंसर को रिपीट किया जाएगा, but the same question can be asked in different ways, and this is one of that example. The feeling of regretfulness for having neglected their native language, French, comes quite late to M. Hamel and the villager. अब ये फीलिंग बहुत, ये रिग्रेट बहुत लेट आया जब ये पता है कि आज लास्ट डे है ना। दे डिड नॉट इवन गेट 2 days। अब लास्ट डे में क्या कर सकते हैं, सिर्फ हम रिग्रेट ही कर सकते हैं। They realized rather late that their language is part of their culture and they should be proud of it. अपनी लैंग्वेज के लिए तो हमेशा प्राउड होना चाहिए। It is only after they have been deprived of learning their language that they understand its value. कोई चीज जब आपसे छिन जाती है ना तब उसकी इंपॉर्टेंस हमें समझ में आती है। And the same was the case over here. The imposition of German language made them suddenly realize the authority of their captors and they felt a loss of freedom. फ्रीडम छीनने का यही तरीका है ना कि आप अपनी लैंग्वेज ही नहीं बोल सकें। So on the day of the last French lesson, the village elders are seated on the back desks, and M. Hamel, who had been teaching French at the school for the last 40 years, was wearing his formal suit as a mark of respect for the last French lesson. M. Hamel expressed how they all had a great deal to reproach themselves for, as most of the people of Alsace could neither speak nor write French. देखिए कितनी बड़ी ट्रेजिडी है। बहुत सारे लोग उनके डिस्ट्रिक्ट एल्सेक के ना वो फ्रेंच बोल सकते थे और ना लिख सकते थे, क्योंकि पेरेंट्स भी अपने बच्चों को दूसरों के यहाँ काम करने के लिए भेज देते थे एक्स्ट्रा इनकम के लिए। एम हेमल regretfully said how he himself sometimes sent, वही रिपीट हो रहा है ना पिछले आंसर का, कि वो कैसे उनको फिशिंग पर जाना होता था, छुट्टी दे देता था, फ्लावर्स को वाटर करने के लिए भेज देता था, ठीक है ना। So, while delivering the last lesson, M. Hamel called upon his students and the village elders to guard the French language among themselves. कि अपनी लैंग्वेज को बचाओ, इसकी रक्षा करो, इसको अपनी लैंग्वेज में बोलो, लिखो, पढ़ो, declaring it to be the most beautiful language in the world. Each one of them felt guilty for having ignored the French language. Okay, now let's see. This is the last question. Our native language is part of our culture and we are proud of it. How does the presence of village elders in the classroom and M. Hammel's last lesson show their love for French? Long questions, when we go through long questions, you'll find most of the things get repeated because वही तो story तो वही है ना. Acquiring power over the French made the Prussians so dominating that they decided to impose even their language on them. Prussians ने फ्रांस को विन किया और वो इतने डोमिनेटिंग हो गए कि उन पर अपनी लैंग्वेज तक इम्पोज कर दी, उनसे उनकी लैंग्वेज तक छीन ली. सो ऑन द डे ऑफ द last French lesson, the village elders were seated on the back seats of the classroom. They felt sad and sorry for not having gone to school more often. Their presence was also their way of thanking their master, M. Hamel, for his 40 years of faithful service. सोचिए 40 years उसने सर्व किया and he has been asked to go away from there in one day. So they had come there to pay a mark of honor. M. Hamel himself had put on his fine Sunday clothes in honor of the last French lesson. Assuming the role of mentor, he advised the class to safeguard and preserve their language among themselves and never forget it. उन्होंने कहा अपनी भाषा को कभी मत भूलना, हमेशा उसको सेफ गार्ड करो, उसको बचा कर रखो. दैट इज द की टू द प्रिजन. आपकी आइडेंटिटी बनी रहेगी अगर आप अपनी लैंग्वेज बोलते रहेंगे. He called French the most beautiful and logical language in the world. By the end of the class, M. Hamel was so choked with emotion and could not speak, so he took a piece of chalk and wrote on the blackboard, Vive la France. That means long live France, and then dismiss the class. एंड तक तो वो इतने इमोशनल हो गए एम हेमल कि ही कुड नॉट इवन स्पीक, हिज थ्रोट गॉट चोक्ड, और ही पिक्ड अप अ पीस ऑफ चॉक, ब्लैकबोर्ड पर लिखा विवे ला फ्रांस, मतलब फ्रांस जिंदाबाद, और इशारा किया कि क्लास खत्म हो गई. तो इस तरह से वो लास्ट लेसन वाज ओवर बाय देम. So these are the few, you can say, important questions which have been asked in the last few years, and you can all note them down and learn them, understand them, because when the exams are near, it will be easy for you to revise these questions. So, now what you all have to do is like this video, and please, those who have not yet subscribed to my channel, kindly subscribe to it, because I'll be posting many informative and useful videos. And this is all for today. Goodbye from English. Bye bye.